Welcome, welcome, welcome to Couples Academy Live. Today we are continuing in our love series and we're talking about what love is not. Today we are talking about how love does not rejoice in evil. Join us.
Good morning, everyone. Hope all is well.
Good morning.
If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Hassani,
And I'm Danielle.
and we are Couples Academy. And every morning we come to you with information and inspiration that will take your relationship to the next level. I'm excited and I'm kind of frustrated this morning. We're talking about how love does not delight in evil. And so interesting as I wake up, and typically, after I say a prayer, I'll scroll through Facebook or Instagram to see what's happening. And I notice yet another black man, because I'm late. We work so much, I don't get to tune in daily, but I saw yet another black man in one part of the country being shot in the back on his way into a car.
Seven times.
And then I saw another one this morning, literally walking down on the wrong side of the street, and 5 police officers hold him down, choking him, and they're beating him. And they're like, put your legs down, put your legs down. He's screaming and can't breathe and trying to get out. And they keep on applying pressure until he puts his legs down. And then I go to another news feed, and then I see, I think in Wisconsin, the entire police department is burned to, I think it's Wisconsin, but the police department was burned to the ground with a spray painted sign that said, "Are you listening now? BLM." And it just, it really frustrates me because there's nothing more evil and wicked and satanic and demonic and diabolical than murdering somebody, and I'll use the word murder, or beating somebody because they don't look like you, because somehow you feel threatened by them. And it just enraged me. Like, when is this going to stop?
It grieves my spirit in such a heavy way just to think about it. Of course, you're a black man and I'm married to you. And every time you walk out the house, I'm thinking, I hope, I have to pray. It's just really exhausting. And I actually listened to a press conference with the man who was shot 7 times in the back, his mother, his whole family. And they were just pleading with this nation to reflect and to check your hearts and check your spirit. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because listen, we actually have our own micro universes right under our roofs where we are disrespecting each other, treating each other with no love. And it's not okay. And it is reinforced everywhere we go in the world. And we're seeing it on the big screen, on the big stage across the world with Black people and Black lives that matter. So we want to jump into that today. We don't want to start with a gloom spirit, but this is what's happening in our news. It's like we have to be relevant and talk about these matters because it actually does affect us too. When we wake up in the morning and we're sitting next to our partner and we see something like that on the news, it affects us. It causes us to ebb and flow between different moods. So we got to address it.
It's interesting because it has been said that African Americans in America, we've been in an abusive relationship with this country for over 400 years.
Yeah.
And many of us, all of us, no matter what side of the offense you are in your relationship, you could speak truth to that. Like you can point to historical times and current situations to prove that we've been in an abusive relationship with this country. Of course, many things that we are proud of, many things that we've accomplished, a lifestyle that many of us enjoy, but there are hardships along with that. But it also reflects upon the fact that, many of us are in abusive relationships inside our home. To your point, there's the macro and then there's the micro. And if we can be sickened by what we see in the world, are we just as sickened by what we see in our households? Because the things that we do in the name of love are not loving at all. And we want to talk about that this morning. But before we jump in, let's just say good morning to the family.
Hey,
Calvin, good to see you. Good morning. And from Nairobi,
Hi.
Kenya, good morning. ARSC24. Yes, good name. Good morning.
Good morning.
Stacy, good morning. Good to see you.
today.
Miranda, good morning. Stacy, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's just so grieving. We, like Hassani said, a lot of times we're late to the party because we're, in the morning we're doing this and we don't get a chance to check the news until the end of the week sometimes. But I do have some folks out there that will send me a text here and there to keep me in the loop because they know how we are. And it was just very grieving to see this. After George Floyd, we're all thinking, this is it. This is the one. This is the time that the world is finally going to see and something's going to change. And, I just think, I guess change does not come without a fight and without force. And this is why you have people doing crazy things like destroying the police department. Like that to me is terrifying that people got the boldness to go to the police department and tear things up. But when your life is at stake every day, just walking down the street, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose?
Wow. That's a powerful point. That's a powerful point. And Angela said, good morning. But Stacy said, and people don't want to talk about it. Now, interestingly enough, the victim is the one who wants to talk about it continually, but the perpetrator or those who support the perpetrators don't want to talk about it and act as if it doesn't exist and will justify and rationalize why it may have happened. And did you consider all of the facts and, what makes it not so much of an injustice? And we've all gone through situations. And it really reminds me of how we show up in relationships too, because anybody who's been hurt in a relationship is the one who wants to talk about it. They want to get it out. They want to get to the bottom of the matter. Why did you do this? And what prompted you? And they're hurting and they're bleeding and they just want answers. And oftentimes the person who is guilty of harming their partner in whatever way that may be, they don't want to talk about it. They want to minimize, they want to justify, they want to rationalize, or they'll lie, they'll omit the truth. They won't get into the details because it's going to remind them of their bad decisions. And so we see the same thing playing out in our relationships.
Wow, that is a great comparison.
Kiana says, good morning, great topics. Have 3 boys and concern at times with their well-being for them not to be restricted by the acts of society. So true. So true. You have 3 boys. We have 4 girls, and it's not gender specific because we see it happening all over the place. Yeah. And we can go on and talk about this forever, but let's jump into the topic because ultimately we're talking about how love does not delight in evil. Right. And how does evil show up in relationships? It shows up in a multitude of ways. Oftentimes evil can show up in physical violence. It can show up verbally. It can show up through a number of different ways. And to be honest, when a person is hurt, as you've heard, hurt people. So even in their retaliation, sometimes the evil that's projected back at the person who initiated the hurt, it just becomes this back and forth horrible struggle that never seems to end. And it truly reflects the sufferer marital pattern.
It does. You have people that have had a tremendous amount of hurt growing up as they were raised, what they saw, what they experienced, just a lot of brokenness. And when that doesn't get healed, oftentimes you see the hurt person portraying that same hurt on those that they're supposed to love. And the problem is that they never did get that healing. So they're projecting their hurt onto you. And a lot of times in relationships, we're not recognizing it. We're not seeing a hurt person when we go into a relationship with them. We're seeing what they look like. We're seeing a big future and a big plan. But that hurt person, if they don't deal with their issues, they will begin to project some things on you. And sometimes they're not even aware of it. You think about an abuser, somebody that's hitting and beating. They were beat. They were hit. It's what they know. You also can talk to folks who, there are some couples that we deal with where they've never raised their voices at each other. Like they do not yell at all. It's not the way they were raised. But then you've got other folks that all they do is holler and scream. It's what you bring into the marriage is what you're projecting onto one another.
But even those who don't yell and don't argue, and because we do know a lot of couples like that, that doesn't mean
I didn't say they don't argue. I said they don't yell.
They don't yell. But yeah, you think, looking from the outside and you think, oh man, that couple, they've got it together. They don't even yell and scream, but they show up in passive aggressive ways. Yes. They do all types of things that bring hurt and harm to their partner and to the relationship.
They're projecting whatever hurt you came with that you have not released and healed in some way. you are going to project that hurt onto your spouse.
So let's talk about the many ways that abuse and evil actions take place in a relationship. One is through emotional abuse, and that rears its ugly head in a number of different ways. For instance, a person who's constantly putting their spouse down and making them feel bad about themselves, or calling them out of their names, or making them think that they're crazy, and playing mind games and humiliating them and just making them feel guilty. This is like psychological warfare. You know, I had a friend who was in the military, and he was a part of psychological warfare, and they would talk about the mind games and that happens in relationships all the time.
Oh my goodness. There's a scripture. It says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And the reason why I read that scripture is because a lot of times, you know, you have certain personality styles that will do these things, manipulating, trickery, trying to make you think you're crazy, moving things that you thought you put over here, moving your keys, and you know you put your keys there to keep you. And in their mind, they're trying to keep you sharp. They try to keep you on your feet. They think it's funny. And it's evil.
It is.
And they haven't rationalized what they're doing as wrong. They're getting all the kicks and giggles out of it. And you over here going crazy, scratching your head, wondering what's going on.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's literally crazy. So let's go to the next one, because what we're talking about here is control. It's power and control. It's manipulation. Is the ability to strong arm your partner and to have them under your heel, right, or under your boot, so that you can just, I don't know, live the life you want, and then have that person enslaved in the prisons of your own reality.
Absolutely.
But we also see how people use intimidation. Like, for instance, making a person afraid by using looks. That's what you would do to a child. Like, when your child does something wrong, you know how you give them that look, like they know, listen, you better stop now, or it's going to get worse. But oftentimes we have this parent-child dynamic in a relationship, and we intimidate our spouses through looks, or through actions or gestures, or sometimes we smash things, or we exert our force and punch a wall. And it's an indirect way of letting you know, if you don't get yourself together, you're next. That's right. So destroying property and abusing all types of things, displaying weapons. I've even seen that, you know, where spouses will use a weapon. They'll start carving a knife. They'll start playing with a gun. They'll do all types of things, and it's straight up humiliation and intimidation towards their spouse.
Absolutely.
Then we're talking about
I could speak on that, but I won't, because it's too personal. But I mean, I know what it feels like to have a crazy person in your world pull a knife out on you, talking to you with a knife, introducing themselves to you with a knife or with a gun. Right. So yes, these are the things that we're dealing with in these relationships, and we got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. Like, we got to know when it's time to get help. And we also need to know when it's time to get out of there. Some of us stay in these relationships because we're bound by religion and the advice of our parents. I hear that all the time with women. My mother says he's a good man, and I should expect some of this. No, we have to get healthy ourselves.
That's right.
So that we know when it's time to get away from these unhealthy situations. When somebody has a lifestyle of operating with evil towards you, it is time to depart.
Interestingly enough, Janice says, I'm singing finances and possession as a tool. It's interesting you say that, because one of the things on this list is using economic abuse in that relationship, where you prevent, like, there's situations where one partner will prevent the other one from getting a job. You're not going to make your own money and have your own cash and do your own thing. No, I'm going to control the finances. You know, they make all the money decisions. They have to ask their spouse for an allowance. Every time they want to spend something, they have to get permission from their partner, not letting them know or have access to any of the bank accounts or the financial. You know how many couples do not give their partner access or know what's going on in the bank?
Absolutely.
Don't know about savings, don't know about investments, hiding cash, you know, doing all, or making
hiding cash.
Hiding
That's a big one.
cash.
Having separate accounts and
Separate
different
accounts.
houses and stuff people don't even know about.
Crazy.
Yes.
And then they will live this life, but then want to, with a microscope, look at every nickel and dime that their partner spends. And this, you talk about being hypocritical, and that's the thing that really irks you. But there's so much hypocrisy in relationships when it comes to finances, and it creates a huge imbalance, and it is a sign of an abusive relationship. And these type things are the things that are evil in a relationship. Let's go to the next one. Yvette, bought me things to control me, or so he thought. Guess he didn't know me. LOL. I know that's right.
That's another way that manipulation can take place, buying things and then trying to take them back too when you don't do what they say. Let me buy you a car, and then you don't do what they want you to do. They take the keys.
There it is.
See, that's the control. That's what we're talking about.
Another one, using coercion and threats, right? So making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt or threatening to leave. How many people do we know that are constantly threatening the D word? And so what happens is if you're constantly threatening divorce and you have this virtual bag packed at the front door and it's very fight or flight, like the moment you say something, I'm out. The moment you do something, I'm out. So it keeps a person on edge. It keeps them unstable and unstable and insecure. And oftentimes we talk about the word, oh, you're so insecure. Yeah, because I don't feel secure in this relationship, because from one moment to the next, you're always threatening to leave, and it's a situation. And then there have been others who have left. They've left to use it as a form of control and manipulation to strong arm their will against their partner. These are all examples of evil in a relationship. And this is why we have to pivot and change course. And it is only through the power of God, not religion, folks, because you can go to church all day long and still be the same evil, wicked person. But it's not until you have a relationship with God and the love of God is on the inside of you. We're talking about the love of God, right? So we've been talking for the first 8 lessons about what love is not. This is the last part of what love is not. Love is not evil. Then we're going to transition to what love is. But I want to make it crystal clear so that we have a key understanding of what we should not do in these relationships if we want it to work. Another thing that we do is constantly minimize, deny, and blame our spouse for everything. And that's what makes our spouse feel like they're losing their mind and they're going crazy. Like literally, I'm in sessions and somebody is saying, you did X, Y, Z. Here's the proof. Here are the evidence. Here are the receipts. And you're like, no, I didn't do that. That's not, no. Those are fake. Those are made up. Those pictures you have aren't real. Like, it's just like, are we in the same galaxy right now? Like, I don't even recognize you right now. You're like an alien to me right now. Everything you're saying is a complete denial of the facts. And even when you present it, it's still not good enough. If you can't present facts to your partner and get them to acknowledge it, where do you go from there? I mean, it's right here in front of you, the receipt, the date, the time, a witness. I mean, like, we got a witness on the phone. I mean, and you're still deny. That is evil. It is. Because I think people sometimes want to question, like, well, what is it? I don't know if it's evil. You know, they're doing bad, but I don't know if it's evil. If you're consistently lying, manipulating, tricking, and doing all the things that are opposite of the things of God, that is evil. It is. The Bible says that you are the child of your father, the devil, when you operate with all of this. So there's another thing that comes to my mind is that, you know, the hurt partner that's dealing with this kind of treatment in their relationship, it begs the question, you know, what kind of evil was deposited in me that I would allow this upon myself? Because there's a part of that has to be addressed too. Like when you always have two. There's always two sides of it, right? And a lot of times we're unaware of our own evil, our own hurt that was deposited into us from hurts in the past that we came into that have us thinking lowly of ourselves, that we can't do no better, that we deserve it. We also allow ourselves to cover and protect the evil that our spouse is doing to us so that nobody can help us. We've all got to get whole. We have got to get healthy within ourselves, because when we do that, the hurting partner who's operating with evil is going to get right or get gone. That's number one. Or the person that is the recipient of this hurt is going to get strong. They're going to get whole, and they're going to be able to see things from a different perspective. They're going to get strong and be able to make decisions to protect themselves. And that is what has to happen. Absolutely, Danielle. On top of that, what about the person who, when they do wrong, they blame their spouse for the wrong that they did? So there's no ownership, there's no accountability for one's actions. Somehow there's a blame game, right? So you're blaming situations, you're blaming circumstances, you're blaming your spouse. Well, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have done that. This is why I go do this, because you see, this is what you do to me.
You make me upset, so I run out and cheat. So I hit things. So I break things. So I go spend money. So I go gamble. It's all because of you. Absolutely not. See, that's the stuff that we need to become aware of when we're in these relationships, where we got to recognize, is this a loving relationship? Because love does not rejoice in evil.
You know, it's blowing up on these comments. It can be very frustrating. Yolanda says, y'all teaching today. Thank you. We appreciate that. Nothing but the devil. I know that's right. Gaslighting, manipulation.
Yes,
it's
Tanya.
Evil. Janice says it's wickedness. It's very true. They then try to deflect things back on you, Stacy says. Very true. Tanya, wicked means twisted. That's so true. Brianka? Okay, now. I know that's right. Barry says, well, yeah, I hear you, man. OMG, yes, I hate the blame game because it's very, very, very real. And here's another way that abuse takes place in a relationship. When you use the children, you know, making them, here it is, making her feel guilty or him feel guilty about the choosing, and using the children to relay messages. You know, a lot of times you get your children in the midst of your conflict. We did a video so long ago, and it was about how to protect your children from your marriage. And the reality is, you're giving your children a front row seat to your crazy. And you have to understand that when you're married and you have children, you leave a legacy. And oftentimes when we talk about leaving a legacy to our children, we're thinking finances, we're thinking possessions, we think wills and things that we want to distribute. But you have to understand that your relationship, whatever that is, whether good or bad, you're leaving a legacy to your children of what their relationship should look like when they become adults, because children learn through observation and participation. So if they see cussing, fighting, yelling, screaming, cheating, leaving, coming back together, physical abuse, all of these different things, yes, they realize right and wrong, because we all do. But when you've been exposed to something for so long, you accept it as normal, and you play out in your adulthood what you saw in your home. So that's the first thing. But then when you use your children, right, when you use them to relay messages, or when you dog your spouse out to your child, right, and now your child inherits the same anger, frustration, and bias that you have, and now you're causing division amongst the children, it is a major problem.
It's called grooming. That's what it's called, right? So the person that is trying to fight for that power and control over you, they know that they have a child that loves them, right? They see mommy, daddy fighting. They know they can go to that child and sow certain seeds and implant certain perspectives. And now you've groomed that child to see things your way. And you start to be on the child actually starts to be on the side of that person, seeing you the same way that that person is seeing you. That is called grooming. And that is a definitely evil, because why should your child have to be in the midst of all that you got going on? Why should they be a part of the conversation or part of the argument? Why should they have to choose? And that's what they're doing.
The comments are coming in, telling the children not to speak to the spouse or answer the spouse phone call because they're mad at the spouse. Yeah, we see that happening. Protecting the children must be paramount.
Absolutely.
Grooming, yes. Everybody's chiming in on your word grooming, because it's really true.
It's true.
And that's what we do. We groom our children.
That's what they're doing.
And so these are the things that are happening. And these are just a small sample of how abuse takes place in a relationship and how evil manifests itself in a relationship. Yeah. And so, yes, I understand. I'm hearing the comments, and most of you are thinking about your partner, what your partner's not doing, how they're not showing up. But what I want you to do, understand that, yes, though your eyes look outward, your internal eyes should look inward. How are you showing up? Because the fact of the matter is, if these things have been done to you, oftentimes there's a spirit of retaliation in the household. And now you begin to get dirty and grimy and ugly and evil as well. And we see how a lot of hurt partners, whatever the hurt may have been, go in on their spouse.
They do.
And oftentimes we talk about the verbal assassin in chapter 2 of The Audacity of Marriage is entitled "Help, My Mouth is Killing My Marriage." And we unpack what the verbal assassin is. And so oftentimes you are verbally attacking your spouse. A lot of times go ahead. You want to say something?
I was going to say, whatever it is, right? Because we are the reflection of our spouse. And so what typically happens is that when you're experiencing a lot of abuse, you begin to take it on and reflect it back. So things that you used to never do, now you do. You know, you hear people say all the time, I used to be such a lighthearted, go happy person. I used to tell jokes. I used to have fun. And now I'm evil. I'm mean. Not I'm evil, but I'm angry. I'm unsatisfied. I'm bitter. And so what you're doing is you're projecting the very thing that this person was projecting on you, and it has changed you. So to Hassani's point, we do have to look at ourselves. If we know that we have been on the receiving end of some of these things that Hassani listed today, then we've got to look at ourselves and see, and what am I reflecting back? What am I doing? Have I found myself stepping into those very same shoes to protect myself, to get revenge, or to reciprocate what is being done to me?
Yeah. So in addition to the verbal piece that you have to really look at, then there's the physical piece, because literally there are many cases where people get physically violent. Now, we wouldn't necessarily just say that their marriage would be put in the category of ongoing domestic violence in terms of physical abuse as an ongoing characteristic of the relationship. But in one's hurt and pain, all types of things are done. So we've heard about people getting punched and kicked and
kicking a wall down, like just, outbursts, arguments getting to the point of being physical and abusive. Not necessarily this is there every day. Yeah. But it happens.
Oh, it happens. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. We had a situation where a person was so much in an abusive relationship that they literally grabbed a knife and carried themselves, stabbed themselves in the stomach with their own knife.
Yep.
And literally had to be rushed to the hospital and almost died.
Yes.
When you've reached
so frustrated, so angry with their spouse that they want to bring harm upon themselves. And it wasn't nothing but the grace of God that she survived.
And thank God she did.
Yes.
And in a much better place today. And so it rears its ugly head in so many different ways. And we want to let you know that even though these painful things have taken place, do take place in a relationship, you can course correct. You can change. First of all, you have to acknowledge who you are and how you've been showing up. And you don't have the ability within yourself to change yourself. And that's why we always talk about the power of God. That's why we're talking about the love of God and the laws of God. And when you make a decision to repent, when you make a decision to submit yourself to a higher authority where you allow him to change and transform your life, and you get counseling, and you join a support group, and you commit to a process of personal growth and development, you don't have to remain the way that you've always been. You can transform. Now, if the Bible says that when we come into a relationship with him, he transforms us, then that is also possible for you. That is also possible for your spouse. And if God is not at the core, the crux, and the foundation of your life and of your union, then you will continue to struggle in a variety of different ways. And when we say God, we don't mean that I believe in God, I believe in some higher power out there. No, we're talking about relationship. Just as you have a relationship with your spouse and with your children, and there's an ongoing interaction, there's communication, there's dialogue, there's studying your partner, getting to know them, understanding your children. The same thing has to happen with God. If you're not fully submitted and fall on your face and be willing to transform your life, nothing about your relationship will ever change. And so there are some of you who are devout Christians, but you're religious and you don't have a relationship. There's some of you who heard about this God thing, but it's really not a part of who you are. I would encourage you to explore that, because it's going to take that, I'm telling you, to change your situation around. God has been performing miracles from the very beginning, and he could perform a miracle in you. Remember, when he created the heavens and the earth, he created it outside of the darkness. It was darkness and chaos upon the face of the earth. And in that, he created order. And so if there's disorder in your relationship, God can come in and create order and change everything. Absolutely. So I hope that you got something out of today. I hope it was helpful. Now, many of you, we've been telling you about a couple of things that we have coming up. We have a master class coming up. I want you to grab your pens and pads right now and just write down some information. September 19th, we have our More Than Words Communication Masterclass. Check it out. Write this information down. Be back in 1 second. So if you have not participated in any of our master classes, I'm telling you now, we go in 4 hours deep. We have they're very interactive. We have exercises. You come to this masterclass with your partner, and literally you leave out with a plan and a roadmap and transformation, particularly in the area of communication, because that's where many of us struggle the most. So we'll be able to provide a link for you to register for that. It's going to be a month away. You want to get your seat and reserve it as soon as you can, because it will fill up quick. But listen, guys, we love you. Hope you got something out of today, and we will see you in the morning with another great topic on love. Take care.
Can't bring us down, can't nothing bring us down. Our love is too high, bring us down, can't nothing bring us down. Bring us down, can't nothing